we're here at the Indian Scout Launch 2025. It's 2024, but it's 2025 model. I'm here with Olas Steinegard. He tells me he's the general no-gooder. I think his title is actually
Director of Design for Indian Motorcycle. Yeah.
And your history with Indian actually goes back before Polaris got Indian, is that right?
Yeah, I actually used to live down the road here. Yeah.
And you were doing what?
Yeah, I was well, basically junior designer back then for Indian Motorcycle when the brand got going again back in Gilroy.
So Indian, they had an operation going out of Gilroy, California, not too far from here, and you were hired to make Indians look like Indians.
Yeah, to work on all the new models. And it was basically a startup. First time when, that group of investors and people got the brand together and consolidated all the rights to it and basically started up again. So it was a pretty big thing, pretty wild thing, but it was cool. Cool to have been part of it. It was a lot of back and forth, and eventually it ended up with Kings Mountain, and fast forward a couple of more years and it got to Polaris. So 2011, right? 2011.
Polaris got Indian in 2011, and you joined Polaris and Indian what year? 2018.
Yeah.
So you've now come in to make the Scout look like this Scout. You had a good base to start from when the previous Scout, but this is quite a bit different.
It is, yeah. And there was quite a bit of pressure too.
Pressure?
Because the Scout is our, best-selling model. So the current Scout.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Scout back in the history, that was true also for the bikes back in the day. That was our most successful bike. So a lot of pressure on the shoulders, to make this bike just as good.
So the old Scout was obviously successful, 110,000 I think sold. That's a pretty good number. But now you've changed the look. It's kind of the same Scout, but it's kind of totally different. Tell us about the bits that you worked on hardest.
So one of the first things you see from far away on this bike is of course the new frame. We're going to a steel tube frame. So not only does it go straight back to the heritage of the Scout and connects it back to the early Scouts of the 20s, 30s, 40s, all steel tube frames. But the other part is also, that was one of the points we got from, when we're talking to customizers especially, that the current frame, the aluminum frame, was really a roadblock for the next level of customizing.
Because steel, anybody can weld steel.
Yeah,
taking an aluminum block and doing something with it from there, that's really difficult to customize.
Yeah, there was, a lot of people were, they just don't know, exactly what aluminum, and it's kind of overwhelming to get going on that. Steel is way easier,
Right. So talking about the frame, the steel actually has cleaned up that area. Behind the front wheel, the previous Scout looked visually heavy, I think your term was.
Yeah, exactly.
And this, it looks like a smaller, lighter, more nimble motorcycle, even if the weight is pretty close to what it was before.
Yeah, so it was actually really cool because the new radiator is actually over 20% smaller.
Yeah.
Normally you have, this, more horsepower, more torque, bigger radiator, because more heat. And here we have more horsepower, more torque, but actually a smaller radiator. I think that's pretty damn cool. It says a lot, about the engineering team. They really pushed. But that smaller radiator, we were now able to push it in between the down tubes. So like from side view, it's really hidden.
Yep.
And it takes a ton of visual weight out of the bike.
Right. When you're a stylist or a designer, everything's got to look good because consumers respond to the way a bike looks almost more than anything else, right? Yeah,
for us, the design and the style is number one by far. Doesn't mean that it can't perform or it shouldn't. Performance, tech, all of that goes without saying for an Indian motorcycle. It's got to handle well, it's got to have good horsepower, but actually, when we ask the customers, style is always number one.
Yeah.
So we take it super serious.
I guess.
And for designers, awesome, right? That's what we love to do.
Right.
So, not to be discussed, it's great.
So the frame is obviously an obvious change, but pretty much every tin on here is different too, right?
Yeah, all the bodywork is new. Still, of course, everything is steel, super important. Steel tank, steel fenders, and the tank is new, fender is new, seats new. Yeah, all of that, all new parts.
And some of the theme that runs through, there's more edges, right? it's still a soft curve, but there are some distinct edges and on the fender.
But it has a couple of feature lines, also a little bit softer, a little bit dialed back, but there's a lot of soul in those lines, you know. So we put a lot of effort into it. Everything was modeled in clay, and that's an important part of the process, because you can feel and touch and see how it develops. And even when I look at this, I still see the traces of the modeler's hands, like in every square inch here. And yeah, that's pretty damn cool.
But to somebody who doesn't work in that area, you should be able to do that in CAD and have it done in half an hour and just start stamping them out.
Yeah. No,
it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Why not? What is it about clay that makes it a distinct difference?
Well, first, I think the most important thing is you can't really build a motorcycle without actually building a motorcycle. You gotta see it, touch it, sit on it. I mean, you know how much you interact with a motorcycle, and that's a really important part of the design process. In CAD, you can't sit on it.
Right.
You can't feel it, you can't experience it. So, like building a bike in real life, it's really important. The frame too. The frame wasn't bent in CAD. This was fabricated. Our fabricator in the studio, Jake Drummond, he's a super good, actually a custom bike builder too.
Yeah.
So he done all the tubes from sketches from Mike Song, the principal designer.
Okay.
And it went straight to fabrication. It's a pretty cool process.
Yeah,
So,
I'd imagine that would be done in CAD and then somebody actually does the bending to match the CAD, but that's not the way it works.
it was the other way around.
Wow.
And I love it. It's like really hands-on process, you know. Everyone thinks everything is done in CAD, but there's so much hands-on stuff for developing a bike like this. It's cool. It keeps it real, you know.
Okay. And you're a custom bike builder yourself. You've had years of doing it. What's the hardest part about making a production bike rather than just building something that only has to please you?
I think the trick is to maintain that level of blank canvas. Because customizing is really key. And you know, we talked about it before, you know, especially for me, it's like part of that American dream, you know, that you can personalize it, customize, you can make it your own. It's bespoke, it's yours, it's unique. That, I mean, when I was a kid, that's what drew me to the American, you know, cruiser scene in the first place. You make it your own, you know, that's super cool. So that is really important. Like, this is a base for customizing. And it's a blank canvas, a good looking blank canvas, but it's a blank canvas. Because we also know that, you know, we can't make the perfect bike for everyone, but we can make it perfect for anyone to make it their own. And that's important.
So what's a design feature that you are really proud of, what you accomplished on this model?
Wow, there's so many. But like from far away, what I think is really cool is that you can almost draw this bike with 2 or 3 lines. Of course, you have the motor. The motor is the heart of the bike. For an American cruiser, the motor is always the heart. You know, that's the centerpiece. And then you have that line that is really important, that connects every Scout from today to the current bike, all the way back in history. And is that line that goes from the neck over the tank, sweeps through the frame and through the shock down to the rear axle. And that angled shock is really important, because that's something you see from, you know, 100 yards away. And there's something that only we at Indian do. And we have it on the Chief too, right? So it's a very iconic thing. But that line right there, that is a line that really connects this bike with every Scout ever made, all the way back to 1920.
So if you had an engineer saying, oh, we need to put the shocks nearly upright or something, you'd be like, no, that would spoil the line. We have to make these shocks work like this to follow the line.
Yeah, and I'm a bit lucky, because the bike that came before this, the current Scout, also had it. So we proved that it works, and it works really well. So that was an easy fight to win. Yeah, and the second line is, you already touched on it, it's that the steel tube frame. It's that S line, we call it the S line, goes from the neck, you know, all the way sweeps on the motor. And that's more of an Indian brand statement. We have it on the Chief, we have it on the Chieftain, and that's the line that you can, like, if you follow that line goes all the way back through the Power Plus era, all the board trackers, and now I'm gonna geek out totally, because there's this famous photo of Oscar Hedstrom standing in front of one of his first prototype race bikes for factory racers. And that bike, black and white photo, Daytona, North Bend, I think it's 1903 in March. That bike has that S-line. So that line connects like every Indian motorcycle all the way back. And those two lines, plus, you know, the motor, 3 lines, and you have the Scout.
Well, you make it sound easy. I think it's a much better looking motorcycle than the old Scout. I didn't mind the old Scout, but especially that aluminum section. That aluminum's great because it's lighter than steel, but it's so much harder to work with, and just as a design statement, it kind of fouled up that part of the bike, I think, which you fixed here with the way it looks now and the radiator being nearly hidden.
I mean, we talked to a lot of customers, right? I think over 10,000 people we talked to.
Wow.
We talked to a lot of dealers. We talked to a lot of customizers. So we had a lot of feedback that we could bring back on the table when we started this one. And the aluminum frame was one of them, you know, and especially from customizers. Guys like Roland Sands was like, you know, if you're gonna unlock the next level of customizing, you gotta go to a steel tube frame. And and another thing with the engine, for example, something we heard from the dealers and mechanics was the valve covers. The old valve covers, you had to split the frame and lift it to maintain it, or even change it, swap it, paint it, whatever you wanted to do. These ones go straight out. So you don't have to split the frame anymore. You have full access to the nuts and bolts, and then you can just take out the valve covers to the side. Small thing, but a huge thing for a dealer, right?
Right.
Where every minute counts. So, and also customizers, you know, customers that want to maybe swap for chrome, or they want to paint them, or whatever you want to do. Now it's super easy.
So design is not just the way it physically looks, it's also the way it works.
Absolutely, it goes hand in hand. Like you know, the form follows function, I never really believed in it. It's like that, it goes together, hand in hand. Then you have, you know, when those two work in symbiosis, then you got the right thing. So that's super important.
Okay, well, I think you did a great job with this. Like I say, I think this is a much better looking Scout, and the new motor is funner to ride, right? It's just more power everywhere.
I could see it. There was a lot of black marks there.
No, that wasn't me.
That wasn't you.
Maybe I'm the general no-getter.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was cool. And again, I want to point out, like, this is a team effort, right? I mean, engineering, design, test riders, everything. I mean, it's a really cool team. Everyone is super passionate about this, and that makes that makes it easy. It makes, you know, going to work a blast every damn day. It's pretty damn cool.
That's perfect. If you enjoy your job, you never have to go to work again.
There you go.
Ola, thank you for joining us here. This is a great looking bike, and I can't wait to ride this 101 tomorrow.
Tomorrow is 101 time.
Yep.
There you go.
All right.
Cool.
Stay tuned to American Rider. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff.